Okay, so the first question for a candidate would be, why are you running?
There's a saying, if you like what you've always had, then there's always the status quo. I'm running because I think it's time for a change. I think there needs to be a new voice on the school board, someone who asks hard questions, someone who has new ideas, innovative solutions, and someone who listens to all the stakeholders. There's a fable, The Emperor's New Clothes, that reminds me of the need for new voices, for a turnover in the leadership. And the story, someone has sold the emperor a set of beautiful new clothes. We'll call them lobbyists. And they have convinced the emperor that the beautiful clothes he's wearing can only be seen by the wise. Well, everyone in the court can see it, because who will admit they're not wise? The fact is, the emperor's sitting there in his underwear. When you surround yourself with people that you agree with, that you get along with, people of similar opinions, pretty soon no one is asking the hard questions. No one is challenging the assumptions. No one is listening to the outside voices that may be saying, wait a minute, you're sitting there in your underwear. A regular turnover in school board members promises more responsive representation.
So are you advocating term limits?
Oh no, we do not need term limits. We have the ballot box. And on November 2nd, the voice of the people will be heard, asking for new voices to look at old problems and a listening ear for new problems.
Why are you the candidate of choice?
My broad educational background gives me the ability to see all sides of the question. I consider myself somewhat of a bridge. I've worked with the administrators in many different functions. One of my favorite administrators is a young man that was a student teacher at Orem Junior, where I taught. Then he was the new teacher next door. Then we co-directed an educational program where we traveled around the country making presentations. Eventually he was our vice principal, and now he's up in administration. I have relationships with quite a few of the administrators in different capacities. I also have got my master's at BYU, at Brigham Young University, in educational leadership, and still count some of the professors at the McKay School of Education as my friends. Have 25 years in the classroom. No, I'm married to a lifelong educator, so I have a lot of connection with the teachers. But I am an outsider. I do speak for the dissatisfied and somewhat the disenfranchised. I was asked to run by community leaders who were dissatisfied with the performance of the current school board, and I represent those people. Let me borrow this term from current politics. Maybe I'm a little bit of a maverick. I'm criticized on one side for having too many friends in the school district, and on the other side for being too much of a rebel. I was interviewed last week by the teachers union, who sent me a letter which I received yesterday, telling me they would not endorse me. I was not surprised. They didn't ask me any questions at my interview that asked me about my platform or anything else. They had already endorsed my opponent in the primaries, and it was just a formality to bring me in there and ask me some questions so they could tell me I would not be endorsed. So the union doesn't like me. The one question they did not ask was why I had never belonged to the union in all my 25 years of teaching. I would like to have answered that, but they didn't ask me. 2 days later, I was interviewed by a representative from a conservative think tank here in Utah, and his question was why I was so tight with administration. To tell the truth, I'm an outsider to all the groups, and I feel like that gives me the ability to see the issues and to work with all the stakeholders. And I can work with them. I'm strong enough to get things done, but wise enough to get along. I take my advice from two former presidents of Brigham Young University, President Dallin Oaks and President Jeffrey Holland. They said the way to deal with controversial issues is first to seek common ground. Well, my background gives me the ability to do that because I know what's going on. They also talk about respect. I will repeat the quote I gave to the Daily Herald when they interviewed me way back early in the primary elections. They were pushing for something controversial, and I finally said, I don't intend to kick down the door and take names. I'm not going to grab the school board members by the throat or give them a thrashing or whatever. That's not the way I would choose to operate. I believe in the principle of respect because I do respect these men and women who've worked very hard for our school district and made a lot of personal sacrifices. Nevertheless, as President Oakes and President Holland have said, first you seek to understand. I do need to know how the school board functions and how they came to the conclusions that they did and why they believe the way they do. Once I have sought to understand, then I would seek to be understood, to stand up for my principles, to present the views that I think are more viable than the direction the school board is currently going.